Welcome to today's session over here. Okay, so what we're going to do, as what we've done on a week-to-week basis, we're going to very quickly update some of the analysis for the week. And then after that, we'll jump into the questions that you guys have actually sent in. And then we'll talk about those, okay? So as usual, let's update very quickly in terms of what we have right now for the midweek. Dollar index is looking for more upside over here. So the idea is we'll likely want to wait for another pullback, potentially towards somewhere around 101.50, right? So kind of waiting for that three-wave corrective structure to look for a buy trade on dollar index, okay? So for me, I always wait for that. Okay, I want to see a very clear 1, 2, 3. If this just takes off like that, then most of the time I would not be riding on that move. Okay, so that's on the dollar index. Then, of course, in terms of euro, we have this impulsive push. So right now we have a 1 and 2. So we're waiting for a third move back up to give us a kind of consolidation like that. Internal a 1, 2, 3, and then we'll look for a sell on that. Okay. Same thing here. If this just keeps going lower, these are the moves that probably I would just skip it because I'm quite strict in waiting for that three-wave move. Okay. Pound here, if you're looking at this, you probably want to go down to the hourly and kind of see if we can get a decent kind of three-wave that looks something like that. Okay? If you don't have that, for me, I'm not interested in getting in. I'd rather always be a little bit more patient and wait for that three-wave move. Okay. So over here, not much of a change since Monday. Aussie dollar is basically still neutral. Dollar CAD still neutral. I think the chart of the week, as I've updated, right, would be the dollar yen. I think that's still definitely one of the clearest setup for this week. So the dollar yen actually came up towards the area that we're interested in. Right now is doing a little bit of a rejection, which is ideal. So of course, over here, we're continuing to look for more downside. And if you go down to maybe the hourly, you can even see potentially maybe a divergence that can develop if this does something like that, right? Then you have a crawl on the 1 hour, you have a double top structure with a divergence buildup. Then that would be also an opportunity for you to get involved in. Now, it does not need to do a divergence, right? Because on the forward chart, we can't have this 100%. We have the trend line channel. Very, very nice structure overall. So basically, we're looking for more downside. Now, for me, this is actually a pending limit order that I've involved in. For me, my invalidation is all the way up here, which is quite far off. But we are basically looking at a big move to the downside. If this continues to do correctively like that towards 123.6, I'll be deciding to maybe add on another sell here with the same stops above this high. So dollar yen is, to me, one of the clearest setup this week itself. That's the reason why we also put it up into chart of the week. So quick update on that. Gold here is falling. For me, I did not sell this move here simply because, again, we are always waiting for that three wave. It did not happen when the market is basically going in a direction that we can't anticipate it. So if you're in that sell, great. If you're not in that sell, then I think where we are right now would probably not be too interested in selling anymore, unless you kind of took the breakout trade. Then, of course, you just manage it along the way. So gold update over here is that we're probably going to look at it where it can still retest this bottom. So there's still a little bit more downside towards somewhere around 1950. Once the market comes around here, we'll probably see how it plays out. If it's a crawl, we'll then look for the buy in the long run as well. Okay, so quick update on gold here is that if you don't have any sell, probably not so interested in selling anymore because the profit potential may not be that interesting. But if you have any breakout sell, from today's move, just hold on to it, manage it. Your target, probably you want to put it around 1950. S&P, quick update, it's coming down as well. So this is one thing that you want to also be aware of. Every time you see a corrective pattern that is going in either direction, right? So in this case here, this corrective pattern is going up. You don't want to expect this to keep going higher, right? Because again, a corrective move like that is not sustainable in the upside because it needs to correct itself. Okay, there's a good chance it will do that. This is the part where you can see this is coming down a little bit. Will it come down all the way here? The chance is quite high. But even if it doesn't do it, even if it comes down here, right, this can still bounce off as a running flat. But the point I want to make over here is that whenever you see a move like that, corrective in nature, don't be over aggressive in buying it, right? Always be patient, wait for the pullback first, right? So S&P is basically doing it right. A little bit more and see if we can get a low here around 4068, 4070 before I jump into the buy trade on S&P, at least for the longer run. Bitcoin over here, kind of developing a very, very nice little flag. I'll wait for it to come down a little bit more. Maybe on a 1 hour here, what you can start to look out for is if we can get a 1 hour crawl towards that 50% mark, that will be ideal for a buy trade. For me, Bitcoin or crypto market in general, for now, is still a little bit bullish, as we've covered a little bit on Monday as well. The upside here, while it may be the last wave up, I think there's still some potential which we can capitalize on before the bigger pullback eventually. So for crypto right now, an update, I think going into like tomorrow or Friday, we may get something interesting. If we were to update this, I think the focus moving forward for the remaining part of this week is going to be euro dollar, right? If this can pull back three wave, we look for the sell. Dollar yen naturally. Gold here we'll be seeing if we can get a crawl structure towards 1950 for a buy. S&P, I don't think we're going to get anything this week. If this is just going to continue coming down, that buy potential is likely going to be a next week trade. And then of course, lastly, we have Bitcoin maybe tomorrow or Friday. So that's a quick update in terms of like what we are looking out for the remaining part of this week. Let us progress into the questions that we've received, okay? So over here, I'll start off with the PowerPoint and the questions that Stephen has sent in. I think this is actually very, very good prep work from Stephen, right? Because if you put in something like that for me, it's easier for me to also understand, the questions that you're trying to ask. And therefore, when I'm answering it, it'll probably be a little bit more helpful for you as well. So first one here, you can see the question that he has is like which point to use, right? So he has two perspectives over here. Do we use point A and connect with point B at this moment when the price is developing, something like that? Or should we just wait for point B and then develop further? So very, very good question over here. Now, how do we then know, should we do this or should we wait? Now, for me, let me draw it out and then we'll talk about that. Now, so the point here is we have a move up, okay, and the market starts to develop something like that, right? So do we then straight away from these two tops start to draw a trend line and expect this as a 1, 2, 3? Or the question that Stephen has is, should we wait for another move here, right? Now, for me, one thing that might help you to determine which points to be using for reference is if you start to see something like that, you want to first identify, if this high is kind of an obvious peak, right? And one of the criteria that I use is basically from this low here, very obvious we have 3, but I also use this thing called the fibs, right? So we kind of look at it now. So let's say we have something like that. What I also use is, do we have a 100% mark? Okay, so in this case here, we do have, right? So this means that very likely this is a 3-wave completion. And what this means is that this would probably be considered as a peak. And this is 1, this is 2, and then we'll expect 3, and then it goes, right? So what we'll do is we'll just connect this top. Now, there's a difference if, let's say, another one, right? It looks something like that. So this one here obviously wouldn't have that 100%, right? So it didn't really hit that. And this basically just comes down like that. Now, case in point is a slightly different context, okay? So this one here, yes, it's a 1, 2, 3, but it doesn't really hit that and it forms a little bit of a correction here. So what we'll expect is this would probably do a bigger correction and then a push up. And this one here will expect a smaller type of correction, and this one would just retest this and does a bigger one. Case in point, this would end up being this, okay? That's where I'm gonna look into in terms of fibs to give me some kind of a guidance, okay? So if I go back to this slide here, if let's say we do have a very nice 1, 2, 3, Fibonacci has also told us that, okay, this is 100% mark, then this would be the one that we're gonna use, right? The left-hand side, okay? So we don't need to kind of wait for more. We'll use the left-hand side, which we use A and B to connect the trend line. So hope that's clear. Now, question 2, which point to use, using point C and D to have the orange line or point D to have the blue line. So this one here, again, it goes back to the part about a little bit on the fibs, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, okay, and this starts to do something like that. So do we look at this as a trend line kind of structure where this will continue to go up, or do we then look at it as a potential correction? The question again is, do we have a very clear 100% fib? So if this is a 3-wave move with a 100% fib, then what we expect over here will be a deeper correction, right? So in that sense, we're also using fibs from the obvious low to the high. We want to see a 50% mark. So case in point, right? If in this case here, we can see this 100% hit, it starts to form one wave and this starts to go up a little bit. Personally, I wouldn't put in a trend line like that. And I personally wouldn't expect this to keep going. What I'll do is I'll expect this to come back down 50% and then go. If that's the case, then this trend line is redundant to me and I usually don't look at it from that angle. So for me, I wouldn't put a downtrend line here as well, right? It'll be more of this, which is back to your previous question over here, right? It'll be back to this. So this one here, I hope that clears out. I don't usually put C and D if we have a completed three-wave structure that looks something like that. Now, another perspective over here is that if we only have 1, 2, and then this goes up a little bit and then it starts to do something like that, and then it starts to go higher, and then you realize that in this case, we don't really have 100% mark heat yet, right? Then, of course, in this case here, the reference point will be using this and, this can do something like that, hit 100% and then only a bigger move. But I usually don't really use trend lines to my analysis and trading, right? You realize that as well. The trend line is always used to annotate certain patterns like a crawl, a diagonal, and then, of course, a completed three-wave move. We usually put in some lines to kind of illustrate the pattern. But we don't basically trade trend line support, right? That's me. So I think that helps to clarify that issue. So if, again, after today's session, you have more questions, feel free to email to me, send it in, and then we'll accumulate those questions and answer it in next session next week. That's all from me, and we'll see you guys next week. Okay, bye-bye.